Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to do our very best to try and teach the users on YouTube how to properly sharpen a chain on a chainsaw. What we're going to do here is use my Husqvarna chainsaw, and we're going to bring it over with the scabbard just to be goofy, and we're going to take that off. Okay, so what we have here is a Husqvarna chainsaw and various tools to accomplish our task at sharpening. Sharpening is an art and a skill that is obtained over time, but I'll try and do my best to teach you everything that I think I know about chainsaw sharpening. So what I've got here in front of me are a couple of different tools. This right here is a round file with a handle, a flat file with no handle. You can use the same handle, or you can just go buy a bunch of handles. They're not expensive. I think they're like $3 each or $2 each or something if you go buy them at a small engine repair shop or at a dealer. This thing here is used to put into a log to hold the bar of the chainsaw, this part here being the bar, to be able to secure it on a log. You just hammer it into a log, and it'll hold onto the chainsaw to give you a good firm platform to sharpen the saw. What you have to do first, actually, I'm sorry, there are two more tools. I didn't think about it. There's two gauges. This one right here is a raker gauge. This helps you determine if your rakers are the proper height or whether they need to be filed. This is a tool that I never use. This is a file guide that teaches you how to hit the right angle. But many manufacturers of chain, especially Oregon, nice chain manufacturer, Husqvarna also uses similar techniques to help the homeowner or the saw operator to not have to worry about these things, because they're kind of a pain in the arse to lug around with you. This thing, on the other hand, it can be good. Some people use chainsaws a lot just to file off the raker, but others don't. Others keep their they just file it using this gauge and determine whether or not it needs to be filed and rounded. But what we have to do first is, I always do the teeth, the main cutting teeth right here. These are your main cutters. You only sharpen every other tooth. When you're on this side, you sharpen this way. Every other one. Okay? You can't do the other ones, because then you'd be doing back on the tooth. But you always do it from the inside of the tooth, on the inside of that tooth, and out towards the corner. You can determine whether a tooth is sharp by looking how sharp the corner is here. It should be acutely sharp and sharp enough to spike you. It should be very sharp, like sharp as the sharpest knife in the world. I mean, it's very, very sharp. Now, in particular, that tooth needs to be sharpened. I see that now. It should be kind of honed down. You don't determine whether or not a chain needs to be sharpened by by time or anything like that. It's determined by when your saw no longer can cut. Hitting a small pebble on one side of the chain can affect your chain so bad that your saw will cut on a curve at either direction, depending on which side you hit, or make the saw not even cut in at all. You hit both sides of the chain, which will take up every cutting tooth on both sides of the chain, and it will render them useless, essentially, and then you have to sharpen them again. If you have clear wood, no knots, no rocks, no chainsaw barbed wire in the trees, which is quite common, or old bullets, things like that. So what you have to do is, first, many people choose to lock the bar or lock the chain to ensure that their chain will not rotate. I've been doing it a while. I don't necessarily do it, but I'll do it for the process, or for this particular demonstration. So what you have to do is, you don't want to make any one tooth any longer or shorter than one another. They should be approximately the same length. This is an old chain, as you can tell by the actual size of the teeth. You know, there's been substantial. These are the same chains. This one here on my right hand that I'm holding that's loose is a loop of brand new LPX chain, which this one here was as well, which is a high performance chain. They all have witness marks on them. Most of the better chains, like Oregon's chains, Husqvarna chain, they have a little witness mark on each tooth. That's why I particularly don't use this. There's a little mark on every tooth that shows you the exact angle to go every single time. It tells you by giving you a very distinct line, and everyone's the same, and that tells you the exact proper angle. I don't use the guide. I simply place my file in my right hand on this side, and then push this way and down to be able to file off metal. Now you want to exert quite a bit of force. I'm doing it quite light for the process, or for this demonstration, until I can set down the camera to show you. Like, I can see filings. If this was an HD camera, which it isn't, and I apologize, but I'm Pope. You will file it down to appropriate size. So I'm going to set this down and try and capture that. Just give me 1 sec. Because I actually need this to be sharpened to work in the wood pile tomorrow. So, now, some people say, oh, well, put on the nail polish, or put on some paint, or whatever. Well, if you can't tell the difference from an unsharpened, freshly sharpened, and an old one that's been well used and it now needs sharpening, there's usually burnt stuff on them. There's browns, there's blacks, there's scuzzy looking. And a newly filed chain is brilliantly shiny, because as soon as you file it, it begins to rust, corrode, and absorb crap. So what I'm doing here is I'm making sure of sharpness. Every tooth on that side should be the same length approximately, and sharp. You can tell how sharp a chain is by the leading edge of the tooth. It comes to a very sharp point, an acute angle, and that acute angle on that sharp point should be very, very, very sharp. So if you pull your finger along that, I don't know, if you just look at it, you should be able to see that it's not got any more to be able to make it any sharper. You can pick it out with good eyes and see how good it is. If you can't get a microscope, or not a microscope, like a magnifying glass, but always make sure each tooth is approximately the same size. Yeah, actually this one needs a full sharpening. I didn't sharpen this last time I used the saw, so I am cutting tomorrow, and I'll show you an in-process sharpening sitting out in the pile of snow in the yard, because that's a common thing too. Just happen to be lucky enough to be able to do this in the basement, where it's nice and toasty, because it's minus 15 out right now, and I don't want to go out and sharpen out in the wood pile. I will if I have to. Done it before, I'll do it again. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so you should, whenever you're doing this, you should see lots and lots of filings coming off the back side of that tooth. Now you want to be going, I want to just point out, you always want to keep your file parallel to the ground, or like you want it perpendicular. You want to keep the bar perpendicular to the file, so it should intersect perfectly. You don't want to be this way, you don't want to be that way. You want to be perfectly along. Push. And when you pull back, don't be pressing that way. Push, and then ease up. Some people even remove it completely. After a while, you learn to just only push that way, and you can pull back gently against it. It won't hurt it. But if you're pressing against it, it can really, really harm it. And it can harm the file and gunk it up and screw it up and make it useless. So it's important to give your chain a good filing. Not every tooth needs it. I just skipped a tooth. I don't know if anybody notices that, but I did. I skipped one. That one, this one here is just a little bit long. That one's just done. Okay, so I've just made it around one side. So now I might very well flip this saw around and find that the other side is perfectly fine. I might not though. So that's when you have to look and see what this side looks like. So you'd be filing it that side of the chain from the left side. Sometimes people can do it sitting right on top of the machine, but that side actually looks perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So I just showed you one side, how long it takes. This is a well-used saw. I sharpen it like a sumbitch. We use it to cut 10 to 15 cord of wood a year. I apologize for the mess in the basement, but it is important to show these things. Now, the other thing that's extremely important about the saw, saws don't cut right without the rakers being done. And some people might think, what the fuck's a raker? Well, this is a raker. Right here. This is a tooth. That's a tooth. Well, that's the other side. This is a left tooth. Or, I'm sorry, right tooth, left tooth. But in between, or at the end of every tooth, there's a thing called a raker. It's also an anti-kickback device to avoid, or to help avoid issues at the danger zone here on the front top corner of the bar. It helps to eliminate kickbacks, not eliminate, but reduce. Now, these rakers, they determine how much depth each tooth can cut, so that the cut is not overworked nor underworked for optimum performance. Now, to determine what a raker, what the height is on a raker, you place your little thingamabob here, your little gauge, press down on it. You don't have to. Actually, it looks like somebody might have pressed on it, and I'm not sure. And what I do, anybody can do whatever they want to do. This is one of those things that requires, there's some artistic expression here. So what you do is you need something that's flat, some kind of device that's flat, and I use the flat file. And if you have any resistance from one, you should be able to take this thing back and forth. This is not to file it down. This is just to determine if it's in need of being taken down. That one's not, but I can guarantee you the next one is, because I can see it even from this side. Now, I always do the raker, which is just a small little wee nub. That's all it is, a nub. And you do the front edge and you round it over. Usually but you don't leave the gauge on there, because if you do that, you're going to file down your gauge. So you take it off, and you just keep it handy, because you're going to need it to check it. And you put your hand there to protect the movement, because the side of the file doesn't do any danger. The chainsaw files have no cutting on the sides, and it won't hurt your hand at all. So you put your hand there, file it one direction, lift it off. File it, lift it off. Now, and push down at the same time. Now, you put it back on. It's still too high. Place that back, put your hand on, push down, and if you don't like the sound of chop, little fingers on the board, please avert your ears. Now, I cannot feel it. This little gauge provides you the optimum cut of 25 thousandths of an inch for each tooth, to avoid kickbacks and to avoid overworking or underworking. Many people, to get their chainsaws to work faster, will file them down completely to speed things up. That way the operator can decide how much each tooth cuts. The bad thing about that is that if you remove it, it can make it a very dangerous device, where it has much more chance of kickbacks. I mean, dramatically increased. And you can, but it can really decrease your workload too. So it's an obvious thing that many people do to reduce their cutting time and the loads on themselves. But it does increase the hazard dramatically. So try to use the guide. at least it gives you something to aim for. If you go a little too much or a little too little, no harm, no foul. Don't take it off completely if you want to live a little longer. And keep in mind, there are old chainsaw users and bold chainsaw users, but no old, bold chainsaw users. Thank you. Goodbye.